Hello. My name is Kenneth Page and I'm here with Adulting 101 Org. I'd like to welcome you to part 2 of our Perspectives of Money series. In today's lesson, titled Career and Purpose, we really begin to talk about money as it relates to our career and our purpose. Because we can't talk about making money, we can't talk about money without considering how we make it. And again, in this series, we really want to challenge the way that you look at money. So in this lesson, we really want to affect the way that you look at making money as it relates to your purpose in life. And we consider a couple of other things as well. So this is a great lesson that you're definitely going to want to see. Now, today with us, we have Megan, Jalen, and Tyler, who are all in their 20s, and they operate as teachers. We also have Kalendra with us, a senior college student, and special guest William Jeter, who operates as a financial planner. So please, let me pause you. If you haven't seen part 1, Financial Picture, make sure you go back and check that out to get caught up, all right? Now, grab your pens, paper, something to take notes on, and let's get started with this great conversation. Because even to comment on it, like when you talk about time and capacity and the ability to do stuff, a quick story, when Jalen had a son, he was about the place where where she gave birth at was not too far from me. And he told me, and I was like, oh, snap, I didn't get a chance to spend a whole lot of time with my baby cousins, younger cousins. This is an opportunity right down the street. I'm going to take it. Well, I was able to leave work and go there, spend time with him, and left. And I even, took some pictures and made a picture book for him. And I was talking about how much happiness that moment brought me. And then I left there, and then I went to football practice. So I had a whole day of fulfillment, but the things that, filled me up with joy wasn't making me no money. But, because of the job that I worked, I had the flexibility and the opportunity to do that. So it's like sometimes people talk about I want a high paying job. I want to do this. But, to Gita's point earlier, and what you asked earlier, Megan, when you're making a certain amount of money, that company or whatnot, they require X amount of time from you. They pull stuff away. And when you talk about quality of life, I got a friend I went to school with. He works on Wall Street, and I enjoy talking to him. His bonus check, his annual bonus check is more than I make in a whole year. He's, has money on deck, but he couldn't have done what I did for Jalen. His job wouldn't have allowed him. He wouldn't have had that flexibility that time. He can't sit down and enjoy Christmas Day breakfast or dinner with his family because if that phone or that email goes off or something crazy happens in the finance world, he has to be on it immediately. So it's you're making all that money, but you spend so much time and it's stressing you out, and you got, you can't do anything else. You can't even enjoy the money that you're making because you're so full of everything else. Kalendra, when you were choosing what you wanted to go, the route you wanted to take in life, did you ever consider how much money you would make doing that?
I know everybody always asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always said that I would either be a lawyer or I would be a doctor. Obviously, those things make a lot of money. We'll say that. But they were things that I was actually interested in. Now that I have almost finished my undergrad and I'm looking at, going into law school and stuff like that, I realized that even though those things may make a lot of money, that it takes a lot of money to invest to actually get that done. And then once you do get it done, you have to pay all that stuff back before you actually are able to establish something for yourself. So I didn't really look at the money side of it because I've always wanted to do something that I like doing. I think that's why I'm kind of in between jobs right now, because I don't want to just take a job because the money's good. I want to take the job because it works with my life. It works with what I have going on as far as school it doesn't make me miserable while I'm there. And all in all, the money is important because you have a life that you have to live. You have bills that you have to pay on time. You have things that you want to set up for future generations behind you, whether it's your children or like I have nieces and nephews. So it's really setting an example for them. But you have to understand that money isn't everything. And I did think about the money, but overall, would I be happy doing this?
Absolutely. Jalen, you've been pretty like set on entering the education field for pretty much as long as I've known you. What was it that like motivated you to go that route? Because and just to to brag on him, Jalen is a call me Mr. Graduate, so he's on it. He does it.
Uh, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, I didn't even want to, you know, be a teacher. Uh, my whole goal was to be either a lawyer or a police officer. But my 12th grade year, I had the option of either taking early dismissal or taking up extra classes for the some kind of program they had. And I decided to take extra classes, but I didn't know what class to take. My mother suggests that I do teacher cadet because my grandmother was a educator in Lakeview, South Carolina for the longest. So I was like, hey, what's gonna hurt? So I went and I took the class. I didn't know it would be something I would end up loving, but it was already in my passion because I already had students like they used to come up to me, yo, Jalen, I don't understand the question. Explain it to me. Um, there's one joke I used to tell on everybody, and it's a true story, honestly. When I was in 10th grade, everybody didn't go to the teacher for help with like the math questions and stuff. They would always come to me. And it got to the point I went up to the teacher. I was like, you might as well just start giving me your checks because they come to me for you. Good thing she took it as a joke, but it was the truth. Like everybody used to come to me for help instead of the teacher. So it was already something in my blood. So once I started teaching that, I ended up loving it. So I decided to go with teaching, but I wanted to do middle school. But when I went for my Call Me Mr. interview, there was this one professor. He was like, I love that you want to do middle school, but I sense that you could do much better in elementary. And honestly, he was right because when I did teach cadet, I was in second grade. I still elementary, so I decided to switch to elementary. I completed my programs. I graduated, and you know, I started teaching fourth grade. And it started off rocky, but at the end of the day, I still love what I do. Only thing I hate is waking up. As we were saying earlier, I hate waking up that early because I have to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not a morning person.
Understood that.
You're a good
Gina.
man. I took that early dismissal.
Shoot, me and Gina was both out of school by 10 o'clock trying to get up out of there.
we were chatting about how our senior year of high school went, and it was less responsible than it should have been.
Oh my God, I wasted my senior year. Because what happened? They get trying to get early dismissal, trying to come to school late, like not taking the first period. So I'm taking study halls then. Then all the athletes was like signing up for gym and weightlifting because, the teacher is the coach. So, we had like 2 classes and it was out of there. Oh, the good times, the good times. Now we got to wake up and work and all of that stuff. But something like what I'm excited about is hearing you all talk about, your professions and why you want to do it because you certainly have some fulfillment with it. And I think a lot of times, have y'all ever heard of like midlife crisis? Jeter, have you ever known anyone that's going through a midlife crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably name a couple of people going through it right now.
So since you got like a direct view of it, what do you think contributes to going through that midlife crisis?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have it. I think that's on an individual basis.
Gotcha.
I do think it's different for everyone. For some people, it could be a stressor. For some people, it could be a lack of purpose, which I assume is what you were getting to the question with. But I do think it's different for everyone. But I think that purpose is an important piece of it.
I guess with that, if I ask a question like this, of the people that you know going through that, how many of them feel like they're like actually living a purposeful life?
I haven't answered that question, or I haven't asked that question to get an answer from it. I would say that there is a hole somewhere for sure.
Because like someone was explaining to me one time, my boss at work was like, how much time we literally spend at work. In America, the standard working time is the 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So if you get the Monday through Friday, 40 hours in a week. Okay. Well, that's at work. They make you take a break, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour. So now you're looking at 8.5, 9 hours at work. Then you have to factor in the commute time. And those people traveling, if you're lucky, if you're 20 minutes or less, some people are commuting an hour plus. So add on another hour and a half. So you're looking at 10 to 12 hours a day you're giving to your employer. Now, the rest of the time that you have at home, you got to sleep. Sleep got to come in there somewhere. If you can get 8 hours, that's wonderful. Most people be floating on fumes about 4, 5, and 6. So that's leaving literally like 5 or 6 hours during the week per day to do things. It makes sense to me how, taking a job or a career path that you're doing it just for the money, but you don't enjoy it every day, how that can contribute to, what we call a midlife crisis, or dealing with unfulfillment, or, that lost feeling, things like that. And I think that's one of the things Megan and I talked about a lot is like that purpose-driven life. In fact, you said you're reading that book now?
Yeah, I am. And I think I wouldn't be happy doing anything else besides working with kids. I can say that. For me, the old saying goes, you can't serve God and money. Like you can't live out the purpose fully and be fully just zoned in on money. I got a scholarship in high school to teach for free. I could have went to school for free and everything. I ended up like not taking it, and I'm still teaching. And that's the funniest thing. But at the same time, it's just to the point, like what you're designed to do. You are sent here to do things. And your purpose is going to be a whole kind of space unless you're doing something about it. You can't just be completely focused on just making the money. You can make all the money. Like you said, some of his clients are making all the money, but they're not happy, or their quality of life is not what they would desire for themselves. So even when we talk about legacy, purpose definitely is a part of that conversation. I think when we are looking at our time and how we schedule our time and everything like that, I've learned to create boundaries for myself. At a certain point, if it's 3 o'clock or 3:30, whatever the cutoff time is, it's just, you have to cut it off. You have to be responsible enough to say, like, I own my time. Like, this is what I'm giving. And now I'm cutting this time off. It's time to transition to the next, whatever. Because if you don't, like I was explaining earlier, all your creative capacity, all the energy you have, you end up pouring it all into someone else's pocket, and you're not going to have any to give to yourself or to your family. Even if that's just emotional energy, when you come home, like, turn it off so you can focus on spending time with your family. Turn it off so you can focus on putting the time in for your side hustles and businesses and things. Like, a part of people's unhappiness partially is because they give someone else authority over their time. It's like, wait, even if you are working this job, even if you are doing a 9 to 5, like, when the time is, time management and having a cutoff time and having those boundaries around your life is super important if you're going to enjoy it. But yeah.
man. Creative capacity. That's a big one. And Gita, you alluded to it earlier, creative capacity, entrepreneurship, building a brand, investing in yourself, doing something. What's not talked enough about is how much, a level of peace or stability that you need in your life for your creative capacity to flourish. It's hard to really, nurture that creative gift in you or, create things or do stuff when you're just completely miserable with life. You wake up, I hate my job, it makes my feet hurt. Someone described the job, says makes their butt itch. They dislike it so much. And it's like, it's hard to step out and tap into the things that would actually bring you fulfillment because you're miserable because of X, Y, and Z, certain other reasons. On a realistic question, okay, so we're talking about purpose. Well, before I ask this question, does anyone have any comments, questions, any things they wanted to talk about before I introduce this next topic?
I definitely agree with what y'all are saying. With me just making the transition from within teaching my professional career from going to just teaching, typically developing, to going into EC, and just the amount of paperwork that is. I mean, just realistically speaking, it's a lot of paperwork that we have to do. So versus last year, while I had 17 kids, it was a little bit easier, and it was just easier to manage for me. So taking that level up in my professional career, I was excited, because it was a challenge. I got to challenge myself within my profession. I'm getting to learn something else, possibly that I could go to graduate school or get my master's for it, because I really do like working in SPED. It's exhausting throughout my day with everything that I have to do. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I'm very grateful because lately there's this quote I've been seeing, is like, don't forget about the times you used to pray to be where you're at. And I really resonate with that at this time of my life, because when I was in high school and just thinking back on, the goals I had for myself when I was younger, I've achieved them all. And it's like, now I'm here and I can't really enjoy it because I'm exhausted from work. So, it's kind of ironic, I guess, in that way, but it doesn't. Oftentimes I'm really like fighting with myself, like, you need to do something for tea artistry. Like, this is your business, it's your passion, it's something that you care about. This is an outlet for you, not even just your passion, but it's an outlet for me, a creative outlet for me. And I think that it's very good to have like a physical outlet, so you're working out or you're, I don't know, in kickboxing and yoga. I was doing yoga for some time, but it's also good to have a creative outlet, like whether you're journaling or whether it is you spending that time with your family and friends, whether you're painting or doing something like that. So makeup works in that capacity for me. So having a job where like it's so much that you have to do, and also like you want to make sure you're doing your job the very best of your ability, but you also know what that time realistically looks like, is really a struggle. Because I find something that I struggle with is like, I end up feeling like a bad teacher because I don't feel like I'm putting all the work that I could in, but it's like, I know I have to give myself a break so I won't go crazy with everything that I'm doing. So, and that just goes into like, really like time is money. Like, I know I get paid a certain amount from this job. I know this is the amount of hours I'm required to work. If I make those hours, no matter how early I had to get up in the morning, I need to feel confident in saying, okay, this is my boundary, even if there is work to do. Because like, you guys, it's a lot of paperwork. And again, I'm not trying to complain or anything, but it's just the nature of our job. It is about really holding yourself to that boundary, holding yourself to that time limit. This is the amount of money, or this is the amount of time I'm going to spend on this. And then I'm going to invest in myself. Like Judy was saying, I'm going to invest in myself. Like, I'm going to take the time out to figure out what I'm going to do for my business. What are my business goals? I'm going to make these investments in the services that I needed. And you really need to have like emotional and mental capacity to do that. And you can't be exhausted from like another type job. So the things that y'all are talking about really resonate with me in my time. Like as it stands presently, like I really agree with what you guys are saying.
Absolutely. You about to say something, Clinton?
I was. So I know like when we're younger, we're always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And usually as we get older, we understand that most of us are talking about career paths and what you're going to do to make money for yourself. But I feel like along with that, we should also think what makes you happy? What can you invest in yourself to actually go and do? And I having conversations with my younger sister now, like just because you think that you want to go a certain path, or maybe you don't even know what path you want to go on, that path can always change. I went into college as a biology major, sucked at biology. Upstate's biology class was super hard. I took AP Bio. I aced every biology science class that I ever had during grade school. And even though I was always interested in learning, anything to do with the medical field, I understood that that wasn't something that I was really passionate about. Even as I was younger, I always said that I would make my own pediatrician office, and I would train some other pediatricians to take over my job just so I could have the money. So as I realized that wasn't really something that I did want to do, even though I did prepare myself to do that, I went along with my second plan, which was to go into law, which as I took criminal justice classes, as I took child advocacy classes, I understood the gaps that were in the system. And even though, I'm sure that in the medical field, there are gaps there too, I didn't see myself being there and being helpful. So I think along with having the conversation of careers, we should also have the conversation of what do you want to do for yourself that you're actually interested in. And if you invest in it as a kid, then by the time that you actually do have to have a career, you'll be a lot further ahead in fulfilling that stuff for yourself also.
So, absolutely, no doubt. So I think it's absolutely important that, especially, in our younger years, we're being heard. We're having that conversation about purpose, passion, happiness, and doing things, because I think it will, deter a lot of issues later in life, especially with stress. Stress becomes, the underlining, culprit for many of the diseases that people deal with, all types of diseases. Stress plays a factor in it. Now, when I would ask my dad about, because my dad, he's worked at Mack Trucks. He retired there 20 plus years. My mom is on her way to 30 years at the post office and retiring there. That's just not what our generation does anymore, or that's not what we aspire to be, to look out. And hey, Dad, this makes me happy. This is a purpose. This is a thing that I wanted to do. So when I asked my dad about, what were you all's mindsets when you were going into the working world, he communicated to me like, nobody thought about purpose. Nobody thought about happiness because it was all about survival. We're trying to, survive, because back then you'd have like 6, 7, 8, 9 kids growing up in a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot house. Like, oh my gosh, Tyler and Jalen, have you ever seen Grandma Rosalie house?
Yes.
Like as an adult, like it's so small. Y'all listen. So my great grandma, her house, like it's, I don't have a big house, but her house is like half the size of mine. And I live here by myself, and they raised like 12 children in that house. And I remember like every holiday, going there, it's be like 30, 40 people showing up to celebrate in this one little small and tiny house. But, you
we
look
all
at
cooped up in there.
Right.
Yeah, sleeping. Hey, Gina, I don't know if this is cultural or not, but we used to put like 8 cousins in one little queen size beds, all sleeping together.
We've stuffed them in some places too, in my family as well. 8 and a queen's probably a little bit more than we ever did, but we gotta, we got all the beds filled, people on the air mattresses, people on the couches. So.
Mm-hmm. But I say all that to say, because I feel like, our generations, when you're a generation removed, like the type of life you grow up in kind of definitely impacts your outlook. So for us, we're all kind of, I would say, second or third generation out of poverty. We don't have the same conditions that our parents had at their age. So I guess my question is, would it at all seem like a luxury for a person to consider their career off of purpose based off of, financial need? And I want to float that around to all of y'all.
I definitely think that is a luxury. Like, me and one of my best friends were talking about this yesterday, actually. She has a friend who's like thinking about just relocating, like, her whole entire life, and like moving out of the country based on just like that's what she wants to do in her heart right now. That's just what she feels like she wants to do. And it will also, but I guess like a positive side to that is that, like, where she's at, she would be with family, she would be with loved ones, so she wouldn't have to pay like rent, versus where she's at now, she would have to pay rent. And me and my friend were talking, her name is Jada, and I was just like, Jada, like, I can't imagine with like the bills that I have to pay, with all the obligations that I have, to pick up and start over somewhere else, or just do the things that I really wanted to do, or make the decision that I really want to make as regards to my life, and just kind of leave what I have behind to start as something new. And I think that's very important to think about when you think about purpose, because like we're obligated to, like, we feel we have an obligation to like pay our bills and provide for our family or provide care to our parents, because that's what we grew up seeing. We grew up seeing, like, our parents going to work, doing their job, coming home stressed, but we knew like the bills were paid to an extent, or there were certain financial obligations that they had, and that's kind of what guided or influenced very heavily their financial decisions and how they view like having a job, and that's what we grew up seeing. So now as adults, even though we're growing up and we're hearing about like knowing your purpose, unlocking your true self, or doing you, or being you, and embracing the things that make you happy, we're conflicted because all of our life we saw our parents not necessarily not what's the right word I'm looking for, like, prioritizing financial stability, even when it wasn't like centering their happiness. So I think that, like, and that's something I feel like I struggle with, because like I love teaching, but I can always be a teacher. The education field is always going to be there, but the industry that I want to go into, it changes rapidly. Things happen, and it's better for me to start now and go long term. The same with education, but to start now and invest that time now, versus maybe waiting and doing a job that's going to make me more money or be more convenient for me, whereas I'm not as happy, versus trying something else. So I definitely think that there's kind of a conflict there, especially when you talk about between generations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That kind of plays into, because all of those factors, things that you as a born baby, you can't control who you're born to, where you're born at, the conditions you're born into. And Jeter and I were having a conversation talking about the concept of the genetic lottery, and like the chances that you can be born into the life that you're born into, and actually using that. But I think, Jeter, you can explain more. You talk to us about what that genetic lottery is.
Yeah, so a hero of mine is a man named Charlie Munger. And a lot of people hadn't heard of Charlie Munger, but a lot of people have heard of Warren Buffett. And Charlie Munger is Buffett's right-hand man. He was kind of the big picture thinker in creating Warren Buffett's company. Actually, I'm wearing the company right, which is Berkshire Hathaway right here. And that's where I first heard this concept, and it's resonated with me ever since. So, when you're growing up, you just think you're better looking and more talented than everyone else, and that's why you're being successful. You think about the situation that I was born into, white, upper middle class, male, in America, born in 1990, a fantastic time to be born. Like, the odds of that happening to someone are so low. Like, probably I don't know, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,500, maybe even lower odds than that. And so I already won from the day I was born. All I've had to do is not screw it up. And fortunately, I haven't screwed it up yet. There's still plenty of time. And so like there is that's absolutely a thing. Anyone who tries to tell you otherwise just isn't paying attention. But the other part of that is Kenneth and I were talking, and Kenneth didn't win it to the extent that I would argue. Kenneth's probably got it a little bit better than someone living in a hut in Saharan Africa. Certainly nothing like that going on. But we ended up in the same place, even though he had a much more. I would say he had a much harder path to get there. So you can still get there, but yeah, it certainly does help to win that genetic lottery.
Because, and the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I think, it's certainly better to be born into certain situations. You get a leg up in life, you can focus on it, going through life, with the mindset of I can achieve purpose versus absolutely thinking of survival. Because even on that fulfillment curve, the first point is survival. If you start talking about Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs, there's, we have to have our base needs met. But on the same token, I don't think that achieving well in life or getting to, earlier we talked about that point about enough. I don't think that where you start absolutely prevents you from getting to that place. We have to be honest, and statistically it shows, Caucasians make more money than Black people. Americans are a wealthier nation than other nations. We have a lot more millionaires and billionaires than other countries too. There's a gender gap. Men tend to make more money than women for the same job and the same credentials. So there are certain, things that we're born into that make the road harder for some. But I still wholeheartedly believe that everybody has a chance to get there. And I think that's on, I always say this, we like to bash America sometimes, but more people are coming here than are leaving. and that's for a reason. No one, I've never heard anyone wake up and say, hey, I want to move to China to give my kids a better opportunity. But you got people saying, I want to move to America to give my children a better opportunity. So I think that plays into it. Do you all have any comments on that, on those thoughts?
Yeah, so I have a couple of friends who were born in other countries, mostly Hispanic countries. And I mean, we all know that if you weren't born here, you're an immigrant. And we all know that there are certain steps that you have to take in order to become a citizen. But I didn't really realize until I got older how important that is to cultures that we don't usually see, especially people who weren't born in America. So yeah, it's definitely it was humbling to me to understand her. Her and her brother actually were born in another country, and they came over with their mom when they were really young. So they started school and everything just as if they were born here. But when stuff started happening as far as politics and people being sent home, they were worried. I remember she called me because they went I think they went downtown Greenville or something. They got pulled over, and she was like, I don't know, but can you come get my kids? And I'm like, what's going on? And to think that people live in a constant struggle or a constant mindset of fear because they have to go back to a place where they don't feel like they have as much opportunity is humbling to me. We do have a lot of opportunities around that most people don't get the chance to have.
Absolutely. Wow, what an amazing conversation we just finished up. I hope you walk away from this really doing some thinking about the career that you'd like to take in life And more importantly, does that career align with the purpose that you have? Because we'd like to have some purposeful living. You know, we can't just keep talking about how we want to make money or the fact that we want to make money. We need to consider how we want to make that money and the way that we make that money, how that affects our lives. So make sure you do some reflection on the things that you learn so that you can apply it to your life. We want application. We don't just want to learn these things just to know it. We want to learn so that we can do and make our lives better. Now, if you got something out of this, if you enjoyed it, I encourage you to share this video with someone else that you love, that you know would benefit from this information just as you have benefited from it. And don't forget to click subscribe so you can stay up to date as we release more lessons in the future. Now, in the credits of this, you're going to see the contact information for Tyler, William, and Megan. Please reach out to them if you'd like to learn anything, if you have any questions. You'll also see the contact information for Adulting 101 Org. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Interact with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Adulting 101 Org. And don't forget to use that hashtag #DoAdulting. Now, if you support the mission of Adulting 101 Org, please consider donating to us so that we can continue to advance the mission of teaching the youth and young people the things that they need to successfully navigate life. You can find us on Cash App, $DoAdulting, or you can go to the website, www.doadulting.org, and there'll be some other ways to give. But also in the credits, you'll see some information on different ways to give as well. Now, thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you that this was only part 2 of a 3-part series, Perspectives of Money. So if you haven't seen part 1, Financial Picture, make sure you go back and check that out. And then make sure you come back next week so you can check us out in part 3 as we begin to talk about budgeting for your lifestyle. But again, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.